Hi everyone, it's Lissa here again with the Zodiac chat, and we are now on this video. If you've watched the introductory video, you know we're talking about the early degrees of each sign throughout the Zodiac there. This video is dedicated to Gemini. So the early Gemini degrees could struggle internally with who they are. They're the twins, and they're to be born into or feel this strong transit like a twin might. That duality, the personality of two. To be simple with it. So twins, like toddlers, they can be a bit rebellious, or like the switching clothing to make other people think they're someone they're not. So if you put that into an adult context, they could feel the balance within their true selves could be a problem. They might feel indecisive or withdrawn, or in controversy, or they would morph into something that they think other people might want to see them as, or maybe they would perceive they would be judged and not accepted. They're very insecure in that early degree and throughout the planets. So it could be a path to self-discovery that they switch this alternate back and forth with their personalities. Or they could just mimic and copy their friends or their coworkers and things of that nature, failing to understand their own identity. But I suppose a positive side for this would be they would be great in theater, because they could become someone else quickly and just shift that way in their energies. Now, when we consider the planets in Gemini at those early degrees of 1, 2, or 3, if we take a look at Mars, the Gemini might lack a bit of the passion or drive necessary for that fight in the battle. That Aries energy, that fire. The Gemini is going to lack that a little bit. Necessarily doesn't mean they're passive or bubbling over with kindness. It just means they ruminate on it a little differently. It's a hidden, vengeful kind of retaliatory thinking for their energy on Mars. Kind of, again, how the twins hide themselves, and they might switch identities or paths to play a prank, or have a confrontation just to keep you guessing of who they really are. So consider that a bit when you're arguing with a Gemini. They might seem like, everything's fine, but inside they're have that bit of revengefulness to them. On a positive note, they probably be able to see both sides of an argument with that duality. If they're not directly involved in the conflict, they'd likely make a good mediator to the situation. Now, if your Venus is in Gemini at one of the early degrees, it's a difficult for the other person in the relationship, because that dual-mindedness, likening it to the toddler behavior, as we mentioned in the early video, they might change their mind about their relationship several times within moments to days to years. They could leave that relationship and the other person in the dark, wondering what went on. I thought things were great. Well, you thought they were because the Gemini was masking their true personality to morph to who they thought you wanted them to be. So Monday, you could be in a committed union. Tuesday, they're just absent and not accepting communication anymore. And so this type of toddler-like inconsistency, again, can only benefit the Gemini, because they won't feel committed. They might not get invested in family and friends and relationships, so they're not going to be hurt if someone leaves them. But it'd be a little difficult in those early degrees on the Venus for them for relationship communication. Now, Mercury, speaking of communication, in the Gemini early degrees will usually indicate immature communication skills. Again, that introverted nature of Gemini, you might see that accentuated, where they'll just mum's the word. They're not going to say anything else. Their communication's over. They're not worried about the relationship, as we discussed earlier. So in those early degrees, if it's placed in your chart, you're probably not going to be inclined to be like a public speaker or anything like that. You'd rather lay back, be in the background a bit. And I think that it's a good thing to discover about yourself, and what we learn in astrology can kind of assist us in understanding ourselves and how or why we react differently to certain situations. So if we pop Neptune into the picture in Gemini at those early degrees, you have to be careful, and the duality of Gemini can give them that good girl, bad boy kind of persona. So Neptune is associated with substance abuse and chemicals and medications and things like that. So if they're not working with someone in a substance abuse capacity, they have to make sure not to mask their emotions or self-soothe with some type of a chemical or anything like that, because Neptune also is for people in the arts and expression and things of that nature. So you have those early degrees, rather than reaching for the chemical, it might be better to accentuate the art. And it may not be a refined like Smithsonian oil painting, again, because it's an early degree in Gemini in that Neptune placement. So it may be, proficient elementary education, art teachers, or like a more expressive art, like a Pollock or things of that nature, mixed media where anything goes, something like that, maybe an early degree in Neptune with Gemini. Now Uranus, again in Gemini, and those early degrees, it can be unexpected events. The Gemini, again, with that fickle personality, it's often associated, or it can be broken plans, or change of heart, or just simply a no-show for work. Everybody's waiting on the person to come in and counting on them, and the Gemini says, nah, I'm done. I'm going to move on somewhere else. So the positive aspect or trait of these degrees is always there and can always be developed. I think it's once you realize it, or recognize it, you can see where you want to take that in your life and just be mindful. Hey, I'm done with this job, but maybe I'll put the 2 weeks notice in, or maybe I'll let them know before I just don't show up for work, things like that. And that basically understanding is knowledge is power, and the information can better assist you and modify your actions and developing your skills in areas if you self-analyze, So again, as I mentioned, all these videos, if you have anywhere in your chart you'd like to discuss in the early degrees or touch on harder, aspects or positive aspects of these, there'll be a link in the description. Just let me know. I'll be happy to do a reading for you. Again, thanks for watching.